Welcome to the Breakout Growth Podcast, where Sean, Ellis, and Ethan Garr interview leaders from the world's fastest growing companies to get to the heart of what's really driving their growth. And now, here are your hosts, Sean Ellis and Ethan Garr.
All right, in this week's episode of the Breakout Growth Podcast, Ethan Garr and I chat with GS Jha, Global Chief Information Officer and Chief Information Security Officer at Accuray. So if one C-suite role sounds challenging to you, imagine having two. But aside, this proved to be a really fun and engaging discussion. Accuray is a manufacturer of radiotherapy technologies, and their products are literally helping cancer patients all over the world live longer. I can't imagine a more important mission than that. And what we learned in this one is that the infrastructure and systems underlying a business like Accuray's aren't just playing a supporting role in their operations, they're really foundational to growth. So Ethan, was that your take as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that for you and I, Sean, seems to just be recurring is that when we talk to people outside of what we think of sort of those traditional growth tracks like product or marketing or design, we're often, surprised by just how connected those people are to growth. Our chat with Sandeep Choksi a few weeks ago is a really great example. I think it struck a chord for both of us. Yeah.
So if you missed that one, he's Harry's CTO, and it was really eye-opening to learn how he sees his team and really his entire role as existing to drive Harry's go-to-market strategies and in directly powering growth. So if you hadn't told me he was a CTO, I probably would have guessed he was a growth or a product guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this conversation with GS from Accuray was similar. I mean, this is a guy who's actually going out and doing the work to speak to customers who in their case are oncologists and other doctors, so that he can better understand and connect those dots between the technology he and his team are responsible for and how that works to help end customers succeed. So, he was saying that, most CIOs probably don't do that as much as he does. But, my guess is that over time, we're actually going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, I think so. I've always felt strongly that growth is a team sport, and it works best when you have alignment across the organization. So I'm not surprised that in the world's fastest growing companies, growth really is a shared and diverse effort. GS made the point that he sees growth through really these two lenses of both personal growth and business growth, and that both of these are connected to IT strategy. So he's really making the case that systems and technology can't just be bolted on top of other strategies to be effective. They need to be integrated.
Yeah, and I think I really appreciated just how generous he was in sharing how that's been really a key challenge for him to overcome in this role. I mean, building alignment between teams and strategy and ensuring that those things connect to delivering value. I think he's taken that upon himself and said, that's my role in growth. So really interesting stuff.
Definitely. A lot of interesting stuff to take from this. And when you step back and think about, the important work that Accuray is doing to help people with cancer, you realize there is a lot at stake. So before we jump in, a reminder that this week's sponsor, SAP, is the world's leading provider of enterprise application software, enabling hyper-growth companies to scale quickly to achieve their growth ambitions with their agile, cost-effective, easy-to-implement cloud solutions. If you are working to power breakout growth success in your business, please check out sap.com/SME.
Very cool. All right, Sean, let's get started.
Hi, GS. Welcome to the Breakout Growth Podcast.
Hello, Sean. Hello, Ethan. Thank you so much. Nice to meet both of you.
Nice to meet you too. We're excited to have you on. And as you mentioned, Ethan is on as well. Hey, Ethan.
Yeah, nice to be here with both of you.
Yeah. So our audience may or may not be familiar with Accuray. I'm assuming more likely not familiar. Maybe you can give us just a quick overview of the business, what the company does, maybe how long you've been around, what size it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Accuray Inc., we are headquartered in Sunnyvale, California. We have a manufacturing and the sales offices all over the country, all over the world, but primarily within the U.S., Sunnyvale, Wisconsin, Madison, and significant presence in European Union as well as in Asia Pacific. We are a global leader in the radiotherapy business segment. We develop, manufacture, and sell radiotherapy systems to treat cancers. with emphasis on neurological indications. Our radiation therapy systems are designed to make treatment shorter, safer, personalized, and more effective. Ultimately, that enables patients to live longer and better lives. Our relentless focus on innovation sets a new standard as we strive to deliver the best possible outcome for the patients. Our groundbreaking treatment delivery, planning, and data management solutions are built on more than 2 decades of clinical evidence and real-world use. Headcount-wise, we are close to 1,200 worldwide direct employees. We are about $455 million in annual revenue. And in many markets, we also go through the distributor network. So we have 1,200 Accuray strong teammates, plus our partners, distributors in many countries where we don't go direct.
And how long ago was the company founded?
Company was founded in, I believe, in mid-90s, 1995, around that time.
Okay. Wow. And so just one more. The alternatives, if they don't use you guys, what is the sort of alternative approach to treatment?
The traditional, surgery, cut patient, remove tumors, or do chemotherapy. There are other way to treat the cancer as well, but more and more radiation therapies have started to play a major role where patient can walk in, 20 minutes of treatments, goes back home, safe.
And I assume most of your kind of outbound efforts then are toward doctors or other people that are kind of deciding the treatment course?
Mostly oncologists, hospitals, centers who have oncology practice deals with all kinds of cancers are our potential customers.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think you might be the first CIO. I don't know, Sean, does that sound right? I don't think we've had a CIO on our...
I don't think we have either. Yeah.
So I thought maybe it would be helpful for our audiences if you could tell us a little bit about what a CIO is and does, and maybe like what's different between a CIO and a CTO. Like, what is your role?
Yeah. First of all, I'm honored to be the first guest speaker on your podcast. So thank you so much. And I'm going to take this opportunity to even provide more information so that people understand what CIOs are and what are the expectations. So CIO stands for Chief Information Officer, right? And every single company have that role, whether they are called a CIO or head of IT or director of IT. But every single company have that role, because who doesn't use computer these days, right? Right. So in that capacity at Accuray, role is a little bit special because I have 2 roles. I have a CIO role as well as CISO role. CISO meaning Chief Information Security Officer. Every day you read some newspaper, some company got hacked, somebody became victim of ransomware. This is where CISO plays a major role in keeping companies' assets secure. But here I'm going to focus on CIO. So like any other CIO, I'm responsible for managing Accuray's global information systems, which includes, to name few, global IT operations, business applications like ERP, like Salesforce, cloud systems, Office 365, right? Amazon Web Services, infrastructure, service desks, to name a few. In my role, along with my team, I apply technological systems and related product to simplify our internal business processes. And as a result, my goal is to maximize day-to-day efficiency, increase revenue, increase profit and productivity within the company. So as a CIO, the role is a lot more internal focused on helping company grow, scale, automation, and efficiency, and so on. And that's what rest of the CIOs do, more or less. CTO sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're about to answer my question, I think.
so CTO on the other road stands for Chief Technology Officer. Generally, that role is found in a technological-driven product company. So that role is pretty outward focused, talking to customer, working with engineers, developing products that goes to the customer, and their job is to make sure that they are using the right technology in a right way to deliver the maximum value to the customer through the product that they make for the products. For us, we are a medtech company, right, where it's a good combination of high tech and biotech. And how we use technology and how we deliver that technology using hardware, software, robotics, artificial intelligence are very, very important in developing innovative radiation therapy to kill cancerous cells. So we don't have the official title here at Accuray as CTO, but we have Chief Medical Officer and VP of R&D who end up playing that role without having that title. So CIO, primarily internal focus, CTO, mostly outward customers and product focused.
I saw that you have an MBA from Northwestern Kellogg, like obviously a fantastic business school. Is it unusual for a CIO to have an MBA as well?
These days, not at all. I think these days, if you don't have MBA, you can compensate that with experience, but it might hurt you if you don't have one. The reason being is CIO is now becoming less as a technologist, more as a business person, a strategy person, and how do you look at the business horizon, your competitors, your industry, and how do you bring the technology to integrate with the business strategy? So it starts with the business, and then of course at your core, you have to be technologists to marry them together to deliver the value that is expected of CIOs these days. Yeah, and then of course you mentioned that experience is also an important part of the equation there. Looking at your LinkedIn, it's you have a pretty diverse set of experiences. I think starting with companies like FedEx and Accenture, and then working more toward the medical field over time. How does that experience help you in the CIO role? Yeah, very good question, Sean. Like many of us, initially when I came to this country, I did masters in computer science. I was always gravitated towards brand name. At the FedEx at that time, though it was a shipping company, but I used to read a lot about FedEx in Wall Street and other media where FedEx was being touted as a technology company with aeroplanes, right? So I ended up going to FedEx, had very good success. I developed their first tracking software. So that was my Hall of Fame at hugely important part of the business. Yeah, really. Right. Yeah. So, but coming to Accuray and life science goes back to my childhood, right? And it's deeply rooted in my growing period of my childhood and the village and the remote part of India where I grew up. The area that I grew up in really didn't have a good medical access to medical services, such as even a distant clinic or access to medical doctors. So that was the inspiration that my parents had, I had for myself to become a doctor. But and the whole purpose was to help my own family and local communities, because I have seen my own dying from cancer. They could have survived if they had a proper care, but it didn't exist. Many of them were not even diagnosed, and they didn't get the treatment. So as a result, long story short, this passion kept coming back to me. That's what led me to life science, hence Amgen, the company which is a premier biotech company, basically in cancer business, but treating cancer using drugs and other things. So it goes back to my childhood. So the reason Accuray and life science, because I think, as I said in the beginning, Accuray is a global leader in radiotherapy business segment with a global presence and helping patients live longer, healthier life with the innovative products that we have. Accuray is also known for very innovative and excellent customer service that this company has been providing to the patients. And I knew Accuray because before Accuray, I worked for a competitor called Viuray. So I knew this company very, very well from outsider. And during the interview process, I met with many executive leaders and connected well with them. And my interview with them more like a two-way dialogue than a traditional interview. As a result, we had a very transparent discussion, which allowed me to gain insight into the opportunity, the challenges, and the impact that I could make to Accuray. And they all led me to come to Accuray as a result.
And so what was the impact you thought you could make?
Oh, there's a lot, right? So during the interview process, I got to learn a lot about their current situation, their growth strategy, their projected sales goals, and so on. At the same time, they were very honest in explaining me what the current challenges are so that I was fully aware, right? So that transparency, the opportunity that existed where I felt that, this is the right place where not only I could make a lot of impact, but I will learn a lot of things and grow as a professional by being there, right? You will find that I'm very selective in choosing people whom I work with. I like to be surrounded by people who are smarter than I am and whose value systems align with my personal value as well. And some of my personal values are servant leadership, being open, growth mindset, authenticity, and care for others. And I thrive in rich opportunity environment, and I'm not afraid to explore new territories and take calculated risks. So those were the key elements that attracted me to Accuray. Just to add a few more colors, that after a few months of starting here, the kind of impact I made, process improvements, speed to market, just education within the company, right from boardroom all the way to employee level, the power of technology, that if we use technology in a certain way where it's not an expense, but it's an investment which can generate revenue and help grow the profit margin. Right, those were the key takeaways. So as a result, I was given additional responsibility few months after starting at Accuray as a CISO. So now that's how I have two roles, CIO and CISO.
So with that, I mean, medtech is an interesting sort of animal, right? Sean and I, a few weeks ago, we were lucky enough to meet Tim Flaherty, who's I think, CFO of a company called Enable Injections. And when we spoke to him, one of the things that came up in medtech is that the time you talked about speed to market or speed to value. And one of the things that comes up is that there's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of unique challenges in, to getting products to market. So for you, it sounds like, your background is, like you said, it's not just technology, it's really business. When you think about growth and you think about medtech, how do you balance those things where you're trying to move at the fastest pace possible to deliver value to those patients who need value, who need these products, at the same time balancing that with the fact that speed is a little different in what you do?
Yeah. No, totally. I think this is very, very good question. I think not only Accuray, but every single company who are in life science industry segment have to deal with and overcome these challenges, right? As you said, Sean, medtech is highly regulated business, and these regulations come in many forms and shapes across many countries. There aren't any standards that's one standard that are followed globally, right? For example, in the US, the medtech industry is regulated by FDA, Food and Drug Administration. In European Union, it's a EU MDR. In China, it is Chinese FDA. And similarly, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many other countries have their own version of regulations. Though most of these regulations have a lot in common, but there are also some subtle differences. Businesses like Accuray has to pay close attention to comply with compliances. And complying with these regulations is very, very critical, right? As a result, it creates many unique challenges and obligations that businesses like Accuray have to abide by and deal with, right? The way in the US at least, FDA has clearly outlined the guidance that company like Accuray must follow for both pre-market as well as post-market. So by pre-market, I mean the process of designing the product. Post-market, what happens once you have released the product, right? Common terms you might have heard, adverse event, right? If the product causes some safety issues, risk for the patients, FDA wants to know about that. And FDA wants to know how are we dealing with it? How are we addressing with it? So at Accuray, we have taken a holistic approach to these regulations by developing a quality management system, also known as QMS, which defines, articulates our product design, development, verification, validation, regulatory approval, commercialization, as well as post-commercialization process, mostly monitoring and reporting that we have to have a well-documented, well-trained professional in place, right? It takes a long time. So the planning, 5 to 7 years in advance is key to success, right?
Does that directly impact you in the CIO role? I mean, do those things trickle down to your side of the business, or is that more on sort of the research and development side of the business, or is it's everybody?
So very good question again, Ethan. 2 groups or 3 groups that are primarily hit hard by this is quality and regulatory departments, R&D, which is product development, and commercial team. But things that they do, not everything is under their control. They need good technological process automation system to be able to create the velocity and scale. So as a result, indirectly, we are on with this to help them, provide them the tools and resources and technical systems to be able to go through this process. So
Gotcha.
the planning, so anything that we are planning to do 5 years from now, whether it is a new product or product extension, we have to start planning now. Pull the cross-functional team together, have a long work plan, critical path identified so that everybody is coming together at the right time to make the right contribution. So it's a long-term thing, strategic thinking, long-term planning, and be able to pull together the cross-functional team to be able to deliver that 3 to 5 year milestone and roadmap journey.
So outside of the those challenges, the regulatory challenges, where do you sit in your role in terms of growth? Like, what is growth to you, and how do you impact it as a business?
Yeah. So to me, when I look at the growth, I look at it 2 ways, right? Of course, every single business has to be growth-oriented, growth mindset. But I look at it 2 ways, being as a group leader, a professional development, a professional growth, right? Meaning gaining new skills and work experience that can help me and my team reach our own departmental goals. And the second, the business growth. Accuray has our own, growth projection that we are trying to achieve, and it's essential for every single customer to have a business growth strategy. Now, part of that business growth strategy, as you know, we live in a very technological world, right? Nothing gets done without technology these days, whether it is taking an order, whether developing, fulfilling an order, supply chain, developing even a prototype of a product. You need technological systems to do that. Be able to communicate with users. You need some communications vehicle which are supported by my group. So at Accuray, the approach we have taken is our growth strategy has to be tightly coupled with our IT strategy, because one cannot move without other. In order to scale, grow, and have a frictionless execution, having technological strategy and CIO play a major role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, not doing that, you will get a marginal outcome. B, it will take longer. C, it creates just a lot of risks because then technology is becoming more of a ad hoc support elements rather than strategic elements.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to go back to something you had said earlier that the more I think about it, it's kind of interesting. You had said when you were going through the interview process and figuring out if the company was a good fit for you, that they were very transparent about challenges and how important that was to you. One, do you think that's unusual? Do you think a lot of companies kind of shield prospective employees from those challenges, and then they have to have the oh crap moment when they get into the company?
Yes.
And then two, can you maybe shed some light in whatever you feel comfortable with on what sort of challenges they shared with you?
Yeah, so you're right. This happens quite a bit where these things are not discussed. But I feel like, in the interview process, the reason somebody is interviewing, there's a need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a right thing to do to express those needs without sharing too much of dirty laundry, right? But there's an obligation that the business has to educate the interviewees on what to expect, and
right.
So there isn't any surprise and misalignment from the day one, right? So many challenges that I took as a takeaway from the interview process were related to alignment and integrating IT. We call ourselves GIS, Global Information Services, and their goals with overall corporate strategy and goals, and with the rest of the stakeholders, departmental goals.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing that I learned, that Accuray has been investing significant capital in IT systems, in IT organization, but the ROI from those investments weren't proportional to for many reasons, right? So what I picked up from that discussion was that Accuray GIS organization lacked IT governance, portfolio management, and IT leadership representation at the executive leadership team, where the strategic discussion, future of businesses that were being discussed. So what happened as a result, that the prior leader, he got the information late in the game, number one. Number B, it was translated, right? If you're hearing something directly, you learn differently than somebody else is telling somebody else, and then you're being told, right? So a lot of things get translated within the layers. The second was, there were a lot of shadow ITs within the enterprise, where the business were allowed to go by their own software without going through proper vetting process and without IT teams' involvement. So as a result, what do you get? A half-baked solution which gives you marginal ROI, and you are not able to support and get the maximum benefit of the system. And third, that was the most important, was that since corporate business strategy was not tightly integrated with the IT strategy, it was a misalignment, causing delays, causing less than expected outcomes, in order to support business. And as a result, IT was playing a catch-up game always, rather than being proactive and ahead. And in a nutshell, in conclusion, if I have to describe all that in one sentence, would be IT was looked at as a support function rather than a source of transformation or competitive advantage, or a group that can help unleash the business potential. And that's what I have been trying to do here through building my own personal relationship with executive leadership, board members, and leaders at all levels, education, and be able to show some good results early on to earn their trust and respect so that we are getting pulled in the discussion timely.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting that you're talking about infrastructure and systems in the context of ROI. I think Sean and I probably typically in a lot of the tech businesses that we encounter, IT investments are probably not, I mean, they are looked at from an ROI perspective, but probably not as specifically as they should be. But it seems like, especially in a business like yours, where you might have longer tails to products and things like that, it becomes really integral that you know what these investments are going to net out. When you think about that, I mean, how do you approach getting alignment around that and getting the organization to understand the importance of understanding the value, of thinking about these investments in terms of what are they going to drive in terms of this year, 5 years down the road, and 10 years down the road?
So, this is another excellent question. Ethan, it's initially as a CIO. That's why I said MBA degree and experience are critical to success. The reason being is that, when you talk to the C-suite, you got to be able to talk in business language, in a strategic manner, because they don't understand the technology, bits, bytes, and ERP and Salesforce. What they want to know, what are the capabilities and what it can do for us to help develop to help advance our strategic goals. That's what they want to hear, right? So be able to connect with them at the business level, at the strategy level is the first requirements of CIO. That's how you connect and build that trust and respect that, right? So education. The secondly, which I have been doing with my team, to develop consultative solution provider approach, right? Don't tell me how you want a solution. Tell me what are your challenges and problems, and I'll figure out what is the best technology and how they should be used to deliver or to meet your expectations, right? So we're basically turning the table where you telling us what you want us to do, you tell us what the challenges you are dealing with, we will come up with the solution, right? So we are becoming that consultants within the organization. That wasn't the case, right? So that's the culture I'm developing within the group. So we are viewed as a solution provider rather than package, for the lack of better words.
Do you work to connect your team to the end customer, to the oncologist? I mean, are there things you try to do so that the people who are working with you on the infrastructure and systems,
yes,
understand that those oncologists and their needs specifically?
Yeah. So depending upon the role I'm hiring for, right? So for the new person whom I'm hiring, we have changed our profiles as to whom we want to be on our team. We are just not looking for technologists anymore. We're looking for somebody who has a domain subject matter knowledge as well as a strong technical background. For example, if I'm hiring somebody to support finance and accounting department, I want to hire somebody who understands what accountants do, what are the needs, what are the requirements, how do you close books, what are the challenges they face. They don't have to be an accountant, but they have to know enough about accounting business processes so that A, you can connect, you can empathize, C, you know the technology that you can bring proportionally to address the challenges being faced. So that has provided a big shift in how we are becoming the solution provider within Accuray. Number two, anybody in my group who don't have that skills, we have put together a training program. We have been aligning our team with the businesses where I tell businesses, these resources in my team, consider them like your resource. You invite them to your town halls, your weekly meetings, so that they hear from you directly the challenges, the opportunity that you are facing, so that we can help appropriately. We don't want to have any wall between businesses and IT. right? And that has been the traditional issues. I just want to create one harmonized, cohesive team where the information sharing and the discussions are pretty open and transparent. And as a result, we are seeing good results.
Hmm. I have to assume that you touched on this, but I've got to assume it's through the whole company that it's a very mission driven business. Obviously, it's making massive impact on the people who need cancer treatments. How much does that mission kind of permeate everyday execution, and people are given context to what they're working on and how it advances that mission, and even can you quantify advancement of that mission to some degree?
That's again, Sean, thank you so much. Very good question. A lot of back office people, especially in our line of business, they're not able to make direct connection of the work that they are doing. How does it help patients, right? And this is where the leadership plays a critical role. We need to find that for everyone in the organization, whether it is an IT help desk or somebody helping with ERP project, or in HR where somebody is hiring new talents, in finance and accounting where they are creating sales order invoices, those are essential function as well to be able to support the business and all that, but they don't get to see or meet customer directly like marketing people do or like a commercial team does. So what I do is look at our annual goals, our long range plan. I use that to project 3 to 5 years IT strategy plan that are totally aligned with business strategy. Once I have done that, then I take it further down a couple of layers where I'm able to define it for my direct reports. How does that translate it for them, for their projects, for their tasks, right? Then we have a goal planning session with for every single employee in the company, specifically in my group, where I take a lot of interest in. I see everybody's goal. And in that goal, we clearly define the project that we are doing, this quarter, next quarter, whom does it help and how, and what results we are trying to achieve. This helps them to connect the dots, number one. Number two, on I would say quarterly or 6 months basis, as we get opportunity, we invite patients and doctors to speak to us. Then they are able to explain how our products are being used, or the good work that our team has been doing translates into treating cancers. It gives hope to people, their family, and so on. And then internally, I also have a good line of relationship with marketing people, commercial team, whom I periodically invite in our town hall to share some customers' perspective to help connect the dots with our team. So that's how we keep. And in every single opportunity I have, I try to share some story from the market. I go to a lot of conference. I personally meet our customers, and I try to communicate that in a way that resonates with my team in terms of what they do, how they do, and how it connects to the product that we develop and ultimately deliver to the customer.
That's amazing. Do you think that's unusual in the medical space to actually get that direct contact with customers?
For CIO, generally speaking, yes. But I am fortunate one where the kind of approach I have taken from the IT strategy perspective and from the CISO perspective, that I'm very well positioned, where I have a very good 360 view degree of outside world as well as inner world. So I feel like I'm a privileged where I have a lot more visibility from my perspective than I would have ever received from somebody else telling me that.
Right. I mean, I've got to imagine that's such good fuel for you and the rest of the team to be able to hear those stories, and it's not always easy to stay completely motivated, but when you know the impact you're making, it's got to be great fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think specifically with your end customer, I mean, being oncologists, years ago, I had the a unique opportunity to work for an oncologist, actually a few miles down the road from where Sean lives in California. I worked with him on a sailing related thing, not on anything medical, but I used to watch every day a guy who would work, I would say a short day for him was 16, 17 hours.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember him coming into the office one night and saying, I had a pretty good day. I sent 2 people home.
Yeah.
I put 2 people in the hospital and I sent 2 to the morgue. And that was the kind of day that this guy would have. And it was it's a tough business. But one of the things he was telling me back then is just how quickly technology was moving and how things from even a few years, this is about 22 years ago, but he was saying that, people would come to him and they would think that their cases were terminal. Yeah. And he was like, because they were looking online and seeing things. And he was saying, no, like we can treat those now. And I imagine it's only accelerated. And it seems to me that for someone like you in a role, the more you can connect the dots from what you do, these very like esoteric structural infrastructure type things, these systems, to actually making a difference in people's lives, it seems like a great way to motivate and connect your team. So it's really interesting to hear that you've actually been able to find specific ways to talk to those people, bring them into the conversation. Slightly off topic, but I think maybe an interesting question is I noticed, I think it was on LinkedIn, you had posted, you had just run maybe your 24th marathon.
Yes.
Maybe I'm getting the number wrong, but I'm just curious.
One marathon would have been impressive.
Yeah, I mean, one would have been impressive. So 24 is certainly impressive. But I guess my question is, has that experience helped you to be a better leader in what you do? And if so, is there something you've taken from that experience that you specifically connect to the work you do every day?
Yeah, like marathon leadership, they don't happen overnight. It's a journey, right? And being a group leader, you have people from all discipline at all level of maturity and experience. And as a leader, you have to be cognizant of that, A. B, and be able to customize your messaging at every single level within the organization so that you're able to connect with all of them. We're a smaller company, relatively speaking, where everybody's contribution is critical, very, very important, right? From the speed, innovation, ROI perspective. So going back to your question, about the marathon, the reason I basically, I'm not a natural runner. It takes, a lot for me to run. But for some reason, it's in my DNA or something. I like to explore. I like the chartering or exploring uncharted territory doesn't discourage me. It gives me energy. It gives me juice, that keeps me going. So yes, running marathon is difficult, right? Especially for different people, it works differently. For me, after I hit 16th, 17th mile, every mile you feel like give up, right? Give up. But you tell yourself, no, keep going. It's another step. It's another mile, and you cross. And leadership is very, very similar, right? I cannot tell you how much I have grown here just in last 18 months being at Accuray. I knew coming in it will be challenging. And that was, for me, the energy, the juice I was looking for, that I'm walking in a rich, opportunity-rich environment. And as a result, I'll be required to work longer. I have to be a good listener. I have to learn even better way to empathize with people internally and externally. So like marathon, I'm still work in progress. I keep looking for opportunity to keep further develop myself, my mental strength, my physical strength, and my leadership skills.
Awesome. So, Ethan, I think I'm gonna take the last question here, if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
So one question that we'd like to always wrap up with is we'd like to know, what do you feel like you understand about growth today that maybe you didn't understand 2 or 3 years ago?
So I would say, since I have been in leadership role, when I switched to life science industry, my understanding of growth haven't really changed much. But if I go early days of my career, where I didn't have as much as of business acumen I have now, I was not able to connect my growth, my team's growth, with company's growth. I was just not able to. Either it was a lack of communications from my leadership team, or my own maturity. I'm not able to put a finger on it. But if anything, I think I take blame that I wasn't mature enough, educated enough to connect the dots. But in last 10 years, for me, the growth has been, pretty consistent how I see it. But the tactically and strategically how I apply my experience, knowledge, and bring others to play in that growth, that approach has changed. And it has been changing from company to company based on the culture, based on the team dynamics, and based on the customer base and the market that I get to play in.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I don't think I've heard any of our other guests make the connection between personal growth and company growth and how important that is. But I agree, it's hugely important. And it's, I actually at one point when I first kind of heard about the concept of growth mindset, I remember saying, I think a lot of people get mixed up. They think the growth mindset of the personal growth mindset versus a business growth mindset. They're conflating those two concepts, but like you, increasingly over time, I realized that the two are probably a lot more tied together than I realized at the time.
Yeah. So that I'm a big believer in, for a company to grow, team has to grow first, because I'm a big believer in our product, whether it is a tangible product or intangible product such as services, is a reflection of the team. By looking at the product, I can predict the team dynamics in the team who produce that product. If the team is strong, as a result, product will be strong. If the team is dysfunctional, you can find gaps in the product that will tell you that the team dynamic was not as strong. So I'm a big believer in building a strong team. As a result, they will deliver a strong product.
Awesome. So Ethan, do you have any big takeaways you want to share, or would you like me to jump into mine?
No, I'll start, Sean. I think just what you said just now is probably the big takeaway for me. You talked about the fact that coming in, one of the big challenges that they were pretty open with you about is that the company, that alignment across the company was needed improvement. And I think, to your point, when growth is not just the business, but it's also personal growth, and you connect those things, it makes alignment more possible, right? Because I mean, everybody has their own personal goals in their work life. So when you connect those to the mission, that's when you can accomplish great things. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think also, just as you said, this stuff is tough. You hit mile 16, 17, it gets to the point where it is really difficult. And it is really challenging. And I think especially in a big organization where you have lots of moving parts, that's a big challenge. And I think you do need to model the mindset for teams and for individuals. Otherwise, you'll never accomplish that. So really good stuff. I really appreciate the learnings here and the time. So Sean, how about you?
So my big takeaways are, I've always been a champion of spending a lot of time with customers. But I think I may not have been as creative in a medical environment to think about how important it is also to connect with customers. In your case, both the oncologists and the end customers, and just how much context that brings to life, and then kind of working backwards from that mission that helps to bring to life to what you had talked about with building business strategy off of that mission, and then how IT strategy it builds off of the business strategy, and all the way down to the goals and tasks on the individual level. But I think when you can bring that all together, you can create that alignment and working well together that creates outsized results, because there's the other side where particularly I've been a much more of an early stage startup guy, and it's amazing when you have really efficient execution when you're small, and as you grow, not to the numbers where you are, but even from 10 people to 20 to 30 to 50, you feel like the average efficiency, the average output starts to drop as people try to find ways to work together. But I think this framework that you laid out there can really help to drive execution that scales over time. And I think that's probably a big part of the IT systems that you're also building is to be able to talk about how do you scale impact in a way that is efficient and secure, and all the things that in the long run help drive impact in the business. So those are some of my big takeaways. But thank you so much for all your sharing.
No, you're welcome. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, and for everyone tuning in, thank you for tuning in.